We're going to look at what I think is a really interesting game now, Chicago at Oakland. Really interesting because of the quarterbacks. Jay Cutler out now for the rest of the year, and Chicago was really starting to hit their stride. And Oakland with Carson Palmer, whatever he's going to become, I guess starting to hit his stride there. So it's Chicago at Oakland. It's 4:15 this Sunday in Oakland. There are two teams on the rise. How about the loss of Jay Cutler? What do you think that means to this Bears offense?
I mean, obviously, you got to be concerned, but don't forget, Caleb Haney came in last year and almost won the NFC title game against the top team in football, the Packers, and 2 touchdown drives late in the game. If not for a pick six by B.J. Raji, of all people, the Packers defensive lineman, the Bears could have won that game, and it would have been. It's almost one of the forgotten stories of the 2010 season that Lovie Smith almost went to the Super Bowl with third-string quarterback Caleb Haney at the helm. So I don't have particularly high hopes for him, but you know what? In the little bit we saw of him, he did provide a little bit of a spark to those Bears. But I think the key, we were talking about the Texans earlier, that Chicago defense right now is on fire. I mean, they're forcing interceptions game after game. They have 2 4-INT games in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, now they're going to need to be like Houston without their quarterback.
They're really going to need to be, and it is a war of attrition. Teams lose plays all the time, but Chicago historically, we talked about curses earlier. There's a curse in Chicago, the curse of Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, still the all-time leading passer in Bears history, Butch. How is that possible?
Sid Luckman.
He hasn't played
because they had quarterbacks like Bobby Douglas.
I know, but you figure over 60 years of NFL football with the changing rules, somebody would pass for more than 14,000 yards in a Bears uniform.
Quarterbacks. I'm trying to think. Rex
None.
Grossman,
it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how historically inept this organization
is.
Jim McMahon,
he had that one year.
Nobody has passed for 14,000 yards in a Bears uniform since Sid Luckman. So.
Your numbers, what I find interesting, Chicago's offense with Jay Cutler up to this week has got itself to number 3 in scorability. What does that mean that Jay Cutler provided to them, and what are they going to be missing?
Well, I wouldn't overread what Jay Cutler brought to the table. Scorability is a measure of kind of efficiency, offensive efficiency we call it, but it's really a measure of how effectively you score points overall. The scoreboard doesn't care who puts the points on the board, so we don't either. So if you get a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown, you're actually rewarded for that. So I think when you look at number 3 in scorability, what you're seeing with Chicago is a playmaking defense and a ridiculous Devin Hester, scoring touchdowns on special teams that really. At the end of the day, people say, well, but the offense didn't score the points. Who cares? Who cares how the points go on the scoreboard? At the end of the day, they all count. So Cutler has been a pretty effective quarterback playing behind a really bad offensive line year after year. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Last year, the Bears were 32nd in our offensive hog index, the worst offensive line in football. So he's really had his work cut out for him. But they score points a lot of ways. They're kind of a fascinating team to watch to me. I kind of like watching the Bears.
So now with the Bears offense against Oakland, here's a surprising stat I found on yours. Oakland is 6th in defensive passer rating, while they're 23rd in defensive hog index. So Richard Seymour on that defensive line is not necessarily doing their job, but they're 6th in defensive passer rating. They're one of the top 6 defenses in the NFL in your stat, which you live and die by.
Yeah, and it's such a killer indicator. And
without Nnamdi Asomugha.
What I was going to say, without Asomugha, who went to Philadelphia this year, as we all know, they're 31st in run defense by average per attempt. What we look at, giving up 4.8 yards per attempt. They're not good against the run, but when they've been able to win games, they've been playing well in pass defense. But a lot of that too, when you look at the quality of opposition, they've not really faced a murderous row of quarterbacks, and quality of competition obviously goes in and impacts.
So let's look at the other side of the ball in Carson Palmer. And I meant to look this up. I just didn't have the time to do it. But the recent numbers since he's been a starter, I'm not sure if you can break those down. But the Oakland offense does look a little different with him now with a couple games under their belt.
Absolutely. I mean, he's not, at the top of his game, he was a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback in Cincinnati. He's had a lot of injury trouble, played in a bad organization. But, we're just looking at his performances here. He came out, through 3 picks in each of his first 2 games, coming in as a replacement against Kansas City when they lost 28-0 a few weeks ago. Cincinnati's playing some pretty good ball. And the number that jumps out, by the way, we looked at this, against San Diego in that 24-17 win on national TV, which was Palmer's kind of 2011 coming out party. People looked at that 299 yards and said, good day. He did it on 20 attempts. He averaged 15 yards per pass attempt, which is one of the best numbers in history. Few quarterbacks ever average 15 yards per attempt. So he was extraordinarily effective, got the ball downfield, won the game, and he does. I think they're a better team with him.
Well, when he was in Cincinnati and when he did have his best success, he did have deep threats. Ocho Cinco was at the top of his game. He also had Hushman Zada, who was a guy who could go over the middle, but he was able to spread the field. So that's his game.
We're firm believers, though, that quarterbacks make deep threats. Deep threats don't make quarterbacks. And you want to cite an example last year with the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of T.J. Hushman-Zada, in 2010, they got Hushman-Zada, they got Anquan Bolden, and did they get the ball downfield any more effectively? No, they really didn't, because Flacco is not a great downfield passer. And what happened in the AFC title game last year, those guys both came up small in a big game. So quarterbacks make those deep threats, and Palmer is a better quarterback than what they had before.
All right, according to Las Vegas Hilton and all the books in there, this is on VegasInsider.com. This is a pick'em game. I know your answer is going to be this. I try every week. You tell us to check out your website because you're going to have a pick. But this is a pick'em game. So what do your numbers tell you, Chicago at Oakland?
You know, I do like Chicago still, but the reason why it's a pick'em game, why you don't really know what to make of it, there's that wild card in Caleb Haney at quarterback. We don't know. All things being equal, Palmer, we're going to have trouble. That Chicago defense has really been on fire the last few weeks, and I think that defense and those playmakers and special teams help carry the day for Chicago.